Hey everybody, it is Winter Mute here. Um, yeah, so this is sort of I guess this is a channel update slash public service announcement based on a recent experience that I've had. Um, so, as many of you know, I was down for surgery for a couple weeks. My health was bad. I was kind of really struggling, and the surgery was going to help take care of that. Now I'll go ahead. It was a lot of the surgery was to help with my sleep apnea, which I definitely had, and I didn't have cartilage inside of my sinuses, or the sides of my nose. So when I would breathe in heavily, they would actually collapse rather than stay kind of out like they should. And I didn't even know about this being a thing until it came up during a medical exam with an ear, nose, and throat doctor. And so I had implants put in here to help kind of keep my sinuses open. And I'm breathing a lot better. And, so I'm sleeping a lot better too. One thing though is, like a buddy of mine at work put it's sometimes it's like health issues are kind of like peeling the layers of an onion. You take care of one thing, but then that exposes another thing. And as frustrating as that is, it's actually good because you are hopefully getting to the core of the issues. And that's basically what was going on with me, or is still going on. So my quality of sleep once I got through recovery just was I mean, it's night and day. My ability to sleep, to actually sleep better is, I don't go into the details, but my ability to sleep better is the quality of sleep I'm getting is just fantastic. However, in taking care of the sleep apnea and some of my sinus issues, and I also had a deviated septum, and it exposed other issues that I did not know of that were contributing to the overall lack of quality of life I was suffering from. And so, about a week after I went back to work, I was almost completely waylaid by a medical issue I didn't even know I was suffering from. And so what happened was, now most of my life I've worked in either customer service or public service. Not the most physically intense jobs, at least not consistently. Obviously, when I was in law enforcement, I worked out. I did take I took some like Krav Maga and things like that in my off time to help me stay in shape. Um, and I never really appreciated. I think I was probably suffering from this then as well, but because the physical strain was not so constant, it wasn't obvious. Now, I've been working in a factory for roughly the last 5 years, and not long after I started suffering some really bad back pain. Um, I basically just accepted it as part of working a physically intense labor job. That was a mistake on my part. Um, I just sort of got used to it. I'd go to work, I'd work for a few hours, the back pain would kind of start. And when I say back pain, I mean back pain in the center of my back, not lower back, not upper back, not the sides. And it definitely, I always took it to be neuromuscular, um, rather than the possibility of something else. And that was probably part of that was a mistake as well. Um, and so I would take painkillers pretty regularly for years, and I just accepted that as par for the course now that I'm working a more physically intense job. But the thing is I never really got used to the intense labor. Eventually your body just gets used, it just adjusts and can handle it better. I never really did that, and I've always had trouble with long-term exercise programs and things like that, which is part of the reason I preferred taking martial arts. It kept me more mentally engaged as well as physically engaged. because just running in place is boring to me. Calisthenics just for the sake of calisthenics and lifting weights just for the sake of lifting weights, I can't do it. I really can't. But if I want to run, I'll go play laser tag. That'll get my cardio in. If I want to, really get my butt kicked and learn something at the same time, I would go to Krav Maga that night and learn a skill in addition to having a hell of a workout. So we'll fast forward to recently. Now, my painkiller of choice was always ibuprofen. It always seemed to work better for me. But after the surgery, I kind of went, I really am starting to wonder whether it's normal to constantly be taking painkillers like this. I had no point of reference. I didn't really know what other people were going through or not going through. So I'm like, you know what, I should really stop. I don't think this is normal. And so my second week back, Monday and Tuesday so Monday I just said, okay, I'm not going to take any painkillers at all, and I'm going to just see how the day goes. And I did okay. My back was not feeling great, but I did okay. I was still mentally sharp, and the pain wasn't too distracting. Tuesday, much of the same. So that's 2 days now. I haven't taken any sort of NACID. And then Wednesday, everything came crashing down. I went into work, and I was on a position that actually requires quite a bit of focus. I had to actually take various aspects of boxes and crates around me and put them into this one box and then ship it down the line. So you have to actually focus and understand one of these, one of these, one of these. Okay, we're done with that. Now the next type comes in front of me that gets one of these, one of these, one of these, one of these, and I have to grab this over here. So you have to actually you have to really pay attention to what you're doing. And the pain, I didn't even appreciate how bad the pain had gotten by this point. I was in such a fog, I could not concentrate on the hand in front of my face. I would look at something I was working on. I would turn around to take care of something else. I would look back to what I was just working on, and it was like I was seeing it again for the first time. There was no continuity of thought. That's how bad my brain fog had gotten. And it was really, so I made a lot of mistakes. And, of course, my boss and his boss are initially getting kind of mad at me, like, dude, come on, this is, why, what's going on? But it didn't take long for them to go from, hey, why are you effing up so bad, to, dude, are you okay? No, really, are you okay? This is not you, man. We're a little concerned. Because the pain I was in was so distracting and not even on a conscious level. It was so distracting just in general. It was creating brain fog that it's not something you can just. And if you've never experienced a kind of brain fog like that, it's not something you can just, suck it up, deal with it, and focus. You can't do that. It's not something you can. It was to the point where there was no option to power through. There wasn't even an option. That's how bad it was. So I didn't even appreciate what was going on at this point. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. And I'm like, okay, well, they moved me to a position that didn't require so much immediate focus, and I could work a little more at my own pace. And like, yeah, we're going to do that for you today. This isn't you. You need a little, we need to cut you some slack and give you as much of a break as we can and continue to function. So the next day, fortunately, I was on another a position that didn't require as much immediate focus. So I made it through, but man, it was hard, and the brain fog was still there, and it wasn't really any better. And I tried to get in to see my doctor earlier, sooner than I could, and I just couldn't get in. And I'm just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I mean, it was bad. It was almost debilitating. Um, and so Friday came around. Now I still hadn't taken any painkillers up till this point, over the counter stuff. So Friday roll around, and I'm going through the same problem. And they even put me on. They even decided, hey, we're gonna put you on another easy position again, or easier, or, not easier so much as a position that doesn't require so much immediate focus. You can work a little more at your own pace and kind of set up things that'll kind of be easier for you. You can think about it. So, but this day I'm like, yeah, I have to take something to get through this day. So I go and I take 800 milligrams of ibuprofen, and within an hour I physically feel so much better, so much better. I'm like, uh-oh, this is not good. And the other thing that I woke up Wednesday or Thursday and Friday morning, and it felt like every muscle in my body was vibrating, and that's the worst best way to describe it, because it was such an unusual feeling. I really couldn't even describe what it was. It's hard to describe what it felt like. A just the tiniest bit of vibration in all of my muscles. I do mean from head to toe. Yeah, it was a very uncomfortable feeling. My muscles felt like they could cramp at any moment. Any muscle anywhere on my body felt like it could cramp up at any moment, and sometimes did. So that vibrating feeling went away after I took the NACID. Now, for those who don't know, ibuprofen has an anti-inflammatory property to it. I also noticed my internal temperature seemed to go down. Now, I don't think I had a fever. I think my body was running so inefficiently that I was overheating. And I've always had a problem with overheating. I overheat very quickly compared to a lot of other people. Never quite understood why. So I really realized at this point now, I'd had chronic health issues and fatigue for a long time, and me and my doctor have been trying to figure out why. But we never really understood. We were always looking for clues, but we never had that many to work with. This was a huge clue as to what was going on. I also noticed I was having trouble sleeping, even though my apnea had been taken care of. And when I did sleep, my quality of sleep was vastly improved. But now that was sort of out of the way, it no longer obfuscated other issues that were going on with my body that I never even understood. So I go to my doctor. And by the point I go to my doctor, now at that point I'm like, okay, I'm taking NACIDs with breakfast, lunch, and dinner just to get through the day. Yeah, literally. And even that weekend, I'm still physically exhausted. Just like Friday, even though the NACID helped a lot, I was still physically exhausted, even though a lot of the pain had gone away. Whatever was going on with my entire muscular system had kind of, become more subdued. I started reevaluating every aspect of my health, from stuff that I'd been dealing with since I was in my 20s, as far as I could remember. I started jotting down notes about anything that could be a potential clue to what was going on. I even went all the way back to my days in the academy when I entered the academy when I was 22. And I started going, oh, you know what? I struggled with this. I had this issue. And a lot of these little things that I never really thought could be symptoms, I just sort of said, well, that's just the way my body's built. Because obviously everybody's built different. Physiologically, everybody's a little bit different. Some things affect some people one way and other people a different way. There's no, just everybody's different. We're just made up of so many different variables. There's no way everybody works exactly the same way. But I'm going all the way back, and I'm digging into my parents' health history by this point. I mean, because it was so bad at its worst. That first day, I went to my supervisor and said, I don't know if this is a tenable situation, if I can't get this under control. Because what you saw today isn't going to go away. That's going to continue to be a problem unless we can identify it and take care of it. And yeah, that's how bad it was. So when I go to my doctor, I lay out everything. And even things like I'd mentioned about how I have always overheated really easily. How I always struggle to stay hydrated. Things about my diet that have always been, I thought were always odd. Certain things that I kind of hated or craved, or foods that have given me digestive problem versus foods that I've never had digestive problems with. So, I mean, I laid out everything I could think of as a potential symptom, including my what I could get about my parents' health history. And I even talked with my brothers. I have 3 younger brothers who have their own. Everybody's got their own kind of health issues. But I talk with them. I'm like, guys, okay, are you diagnosed with any sort of chronic illness, or what kind of issues do you have? And so we kind of just talked for a while and compared notes, so I could present it all to my doctor. And I sat there for almost an hour just explaining this stuff to my doctor, everything from start to finish. And she ultimately goes, yeah, no, this is, I think we've taken a major step forward. We have we're going to come up with, there are certainly some things that come to the top of my head as potential problems here. And so we have a game plan on how to start testing for them. I have my own fears. I'm not going to go into what they might be. I'm getting all sorts of blood tests and x-rays done right now. But let me get to the point. I dealt with a lot of these issues my whole life and didn't even realize they were issues. And I should have never, ever ignored the chronic pain in my back, and in some ways other parts of my body. I should have never just said, well, that's just life. You work a much more physical job now. I should have never done that. Never ignore something that is chronic that may be a symptom. Bring it up to your doctor, even if it seems minor. Your doctor might go, okay, well, some people work this way. So, I mean, that's not raising any red flags in and of itself. But then the next time you go, I've got this. Oh, okay, all right. Again, not raising any red. But then the third time you go, it's like, okay, well, something new has come up. I've realized something new. And then that's when maybe the time the doctor, okay, the last 2 times we talked, you told me about this and this. Now that you're adding this to the mix, now we have a red flag. Now we've got a red flag that we need to work with. Now, of course, some people are afraid of coming across as being hypochondriacs. And you know what? If you've got a doctor who plays that card first time you bring something up, leave that doctor. And I've dealt with some dismissive doctors. If you have concerns about your doctor taking you seriously, do not go to that doctor. Now, I know it's easier said than done. And sometimes you're seeing a specialist for something you do know you have. But don't, just because they're a doctor doesn't mean that they're above mistakes, and doesn't mean that they should not be taking you seriously. And they should not be dismissive of your issues. Now, fortunately, I've never really had many doctors that have done that. I've had some doctors with some bad bedside manner that I have had to help them course correct their behavior. And I am the kind of person that will do that. But my point being is, don't ignore something that is a potential symptom. I'm realizing how much of my life I have lost due to chronic illness of some sort that have not been identified, that maybe could have been identified a long time ago. Maybe they couldn't have. I don't know. Obviously everybody, as you get older, things change, and I've gotten older. And if you're not, and I know there are people out there who their first reaction is, I'm going to go to a doctor. I'm not going to go to a doctor just because I have this pain in my arm or shoulder or back or whatever. Whatever. It's just part of life. If you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for the people around you. Because this doesn't just end, my problems physically don't just end when I leave work. No, they come home with me. And they have destroyed so many weekends with my kids where I had no energy. I was physically just beaten down, and it should not have been that way. And I just said, again, I just took, I guess this is just the way it is now. But it's a good job, and it wasn't the job. It wasn't the job at all. I had physical ailments that I didn't know about. So please never ignore that, and do it for the sake of those around you. And that to me is the most upsetting part, is how much time I've lost with being able to have fun with my kids while they're still young. And that's very important to me, because my dad passed away when I was 10, and he was only 44. I'm 42 now, and my kids are 9 and 10 years old. So I'm relieved that I am able to be proactive about this at this point, and identify, even at this late stage, that this is something I should have taken care of sooner, or I should have seen coming sooner, or dealt with sooner. But it's still, it hurts it really hurts when I think about, how much has impacted my time with my kids. And that's the hardest part. The company I work for is a good company. I've worked far worse jobs for far less money. So yeah, I'm even though it's not my job of choice, it's not a bad job. So I won't complain about that. But at the same time, I could lose this job and continue to live and be okay. I could handle that. But to constantly to be 10 years on, and my kids are adults and have nothing to look back on other than pain and misery on my part, and being exhausted on the weekends, would be really hard on me. So if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for those around you, because they want to see you in good health, and they want to be able to enjoy their time with you. So never ignore anything that's a possible symptom. Never. Please don't. That's my PSA, and the point of all this is be proactive about your health. If you think it's a potential issue, bring it up. Don't just, and it's chronic. Bring it up. Talk to your doctor. Look for a possible solution if it really is impacting you negatively somehow. Don't just shrug and say, well, that's just life. It's just the way it works. So that's where I've been. That's what I've been doing. The pain's a lot more under control now that I'm taking NSAIDs regularly. Like, I don't need to wait to feel pain. I just take them at a certain time of day every day. At least for now, until we can identify what the underlying problem is. So that's why I haven't been on in weeks. And that's what this video is about. It's a warning to anybody who sees it. If one person sees this and goes, I need to go talk to my doctor, then I'll be happy with that. Because hopefully that's one less person that has to go through what I just went through, or I'm going through right now. So that's how things are. I'll be back in hopefully a couple days on a more upbeat level, now that my energy level is at least back to a reasonable level, reasonable place. So there we are. Winter Mute signing off.